Blood. That was the first thing Layla saw splattered on the ground. Her heart pounded as she pressed her back against the cold brick wall of the narrow alley. The man she had been running from was closing in, heavy footsteps echoing against the walls. She gripped her handbag tightly, the metal edge of her laptop pressing into her ribs. "Where do you think you're going, lawyer girl?" The man sneered, his shadow stretching long and dark. Layla's throat went dry. She had left the law office late after working on a controversial case. She didn't know she was being followed until it was too late. Just as the man reached for her, a deep growl rumbled through the night. It wasn't human, it was sharp, wild, and terrifying. The man froze, his hand trembling. From the shadows stepped a tall figure. Broad shoulders, dark eyes that burned like fire. His presence was so commanding that even the air seemed to shift around him. "Touch her, and you'll regret it," he said in a low, dangerous voice. The attacker stumbled back, suddenly pale. I didn't mean..." "You've got 3 seconds to disappear." The man bolted down the alley like his life depended on it. Layla stood frozen, staring at the stranger. His eyes softened when they landed on her. "You're safe now," he said, his tone gentler. Layla's lips parted. She didn't know this man. She didn't know why he cared. But something about the way he looked at her made her heart race. She had no idea that this was the night her life would change forever. His name was Damon. At least that was what he told her. In truth, he was Alpha King Damon, ruler of one of the most powerful wolf clans. But here in this foreign country, he was hiding who he truly was. After enemies had targeted his kingdom, he had moved across borders to protect his people and himself. And now, fate had thrown Layla into his path. He couldn't stop thinking about her after that night. The way her wide brown eyes had locked on his, the way her scent had hit him. Warm, sweet, like honey and danger all at once. He knew instantly what she was. His mate. But how could he tell her that? She was human, a lawyer, a woman who lived in a world of rules and evidence. She had no idea that creatures like him existed. So he stayed close, always watching, always protecting. He volunteered at the same community center where she sometimes gave free legal advice. He bumped into her at the coffee shop near her office. He even made sure his apartment wasn't too far from hers. Layla, sharp as always, noticed. "You show up everywhere I go," she teased one day, sipping her latte. "Maybe I like good coffee," he replied smoothly. She laughed, but deep down, she felt something strange. Safe, drawn. Like she had known him forever, though they had only just met. And Damon? He was fighting every instinct in his body not to pull her into his arms and claim her as his. One evening, Layla was in court defending a client, a young man accused of a crime he didn't commit. She fought hard, her voice steady, her arguments sharp. She won the case, but by the time she left the courthouse, it was late. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she walked to her car. The street was too quiet. Her instincts screamed danger. Before she could reach the car, 2 black SUVs pulled up, blocking her path. Men in dark suits stepped out, their eyes cold and calculating. "Miss Layla," one said with a smirk, "you've been making trouble in court." Some people don't like that. Her stomach dropped. These weren't ordinary thugs. They looked professional, dangerous. Just as panic rose in her chest, Damon appeared. His presence was like thunder rolling through the night. "Step away from her," he growled. The men laughed. "And who are you supposed to be?" Damon's lips curled. "The last face you'll ever see if you touch her." The men lunged, but they never stood a chance. Damon moved faster than human eyes could follow. His fists struck with bone-cracking force. His growls filled the air as he fought them off with ease. Layla's heart raced as she watched. No normal man could move like that. No normal man could fight with such raw power. When the last attacker fell groaning to the ground, Damon turned to her. His eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. And for the first time, Layla realized. He wasn't just a man. Layla couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Damon's fists striking, his eyes glowing faintly, the way the attackers crumpled to the ground like broken toys. It didn't make sense. No man could move like that. She sat up in bed, clutching her pillow. Who is he? The next morning at her office, she tried to bury herself in work. Case files stacked up, clients called nonstop, but her mind kept drifting back to him. Damon. The man who appeared whenever she was in danger. The man who looked at her like she was the center of his world. Later that day, he showed up at her office with 2 cups of coffee. "You looked like you needed this," he said, smiling. She stared at him for a moment before taking the cup. "Why are you always around, Damon? You show up out of nowhere. You fight like something not human." For a moment, his expression faltered. Then he leaned closer, his voice low. "Would you believe me if I told you I'm just a man who doesn't like seeing you hurt?" Layla searched his eyes. They were warm but unreadable, like he was carrying 100 secrets. She wanted to press him harder, but something about the way he said it made her chest tighten, so she let it go. For now. That evening, Damon offered to walk her home. Layla hesitated, then nodded. She felt safer with him than she had ever felt with anyone. The streets were quiet, the lamps casting golden halos on the pavement. They walked side by side, their shoulders almost touching. The air between them was charged, like static before a storm. "You don't talk much about yourself," Layla said softly. "I've lived a complicated life," Damon admitted, "but being here, with you, makes it simpler." Her cheeks warmed. She looked away, but he caught her hand gently. The touch sent a shiver through her. "You're trembling," he murmured. "It's not from fear," she whispered before she could stop herself. They stopped under a streetlight, staring at each other. His hand brushed her cheek, his thumb soft against her skin. "Layla," he said, his voice deep and rough. "You have no idea how hard it is to stay away from you." Before she could respond, a car screeched past, breaking the moment. Damon pulled back, his jaw tight. "I should get you home," he said quickly, but his eyes lingered on her lips a moment too long. Layla's heart pounded. She didn't know what was happening between them, but she knew one thing. She wanted more. Far away in a dimly lit hotel room, a man stood at the window, speaking into a phone. "Yes, I've found him," the man said. His accent was sharp, foreign. "The Alpha King is here, in this country. And he has a woman with him." There was a pause on the other end of the line. The man smirked. "Yes, we'll use her. If he cares about her, she'll be his weakness." Back in the city, Damon felt it, a chill, a shift in the air. His enemies had tracked him down. His wolf senses screamed danger. He paced his apartment, running a hand through his hair. "I should leave. I should take her far from here before they touch her." But then he remembered her smile, her laughter at the coffee shop, the way her hand fit perfectly in his. The thought of leaving her behind made his chest ache. No, he couldn't walk away. Not from his mate. 2 nights later, Layla invited Damon into her apartment for dinner. It was small, but warm, books stacked everywhere, the scent of roasted chicken filling the air. "Don't laugh," she said shyly, setting plates on the table. "I don't usually cook for anyone." "I'm honored," Damon said, his deep voice softer than usual. They ate, they talked, they laughed, but underneath it all there was tension, like a string pulled too tight. After dinner, Damon stood by the window, staring out at the night. His back was tense. Layla walked over, touching his arm gently. "What's wrong?" she asked. He turned to her, his eyes darker than she'd ever seen. "Layla, there are things about me you don't understand. Things I've tried to hide." Her breath caught. "Like what?" He hesitated. His instincts screamed not to tell her, not yet. But his heart wanted her to know everything. I'm not who you think I am, he said finally. His voice was low, almost breaking. I'm dangerous, and if you stay close to me, you will be too. Layla stared at him, her pulse racing. Then tell me who you really are, Damon. Because whatever it is, I don't want to be afraid of you. For the first time, Damon let his wolf eyes glow fully, golden and fierce in the dim light of her apartment. Layla gasped, but she didn't step back. She didn't scream. She just stared, her lips parted, her chest rising and falling. And Damon knew, in that moment, that she was braver than anyone he had ever known. Layla's breath came fast as Damon's golden eyes glowed in the dim light. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt captivated. Damon, she whispered, what are you? He clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to look away. But this was his mate. He couldn't keep lying to her. I'm not just a man, he said slowly. I'm a wolf, an alpha, a king of my people. Layla blinked, her mind reeling. A king? Yes. His voice was low, steady. I left my country to protect them, but my enemies followed. And now, they know about you. Her knees almost gave way, but she forced herself to stay upright. So you're saying you're… what? A werewolf? His lips tightened. Not the kind you see in stories. My kind has lived for centuries, ruling in the shadows, stronger, faster, deadlier, and bound by fate to one mate. Her heart thudded. And that mate? Is me? His gaze softened. From the moment I saw you, I knew. You are mine, Layla. My soul recognized you. She backed up a step, her hands shaking. This is insane. People don't just turn into wolves. I can prove it, Damon said, his voice almost pleading. But once you see, there's no going back. You'll be part of my world forever. Layla's mind screamed run, but her heart whispered, stay. She swallowed hard. Then show me. They drove out of the city, past the lights and noise, until the forest swallowed the road. The moon hung low and silver above the trees. Damon stepped out of the car and walked into the clearing. Layla followed slowly, her pulse racing. He turned to her. Don't be afraid. Then, before her eyes, his body began to shift. His muscles rippled, his bones cracked and reshaped, his clothes tearing at the seams. Within seconds, where Damon had stood, a massive black wolf towered. His golden eyes glowed, locking onto her with fierce intensity. Layla gasped, stumbling back. The wolf's presence was overwhelming. Raw power, untamed and wild. But when he lowered his head, stepping closer, she saw something else in his gaze. Gentleness. Damon, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. The wolf nuzzled her hand softly, careful not to harm her. Her fear melted, replaced by awe. She reached out, fingers brushing his thick fur. Warmth spread through her chest, stronger than anything she had ever felt. He shifted back, his human form returning, his chest rising and falling. Now you know, he said hoarsely. Do you still want me near you? Layla's lips trembled. She looked into his eyes and saw the same man who had saved her, protected her, made her laugh. Yes, she whispered, I want you. Relief crashed over him. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his bare chest. And for the first time, he allowed himself to breathe freely. The next morning, Layla woke in her apartment with Damon asleep on the couch. She smiled, remembering the night before, his confession, his wolf form, his touch. But the peace didn't last. When she stepped into the hallway to grab the newspaper, she froze. The door across from hers was ajar. Inside, the old neighbor who lived there was lying unconscious, a bruise on his temple. Before Layla could scream, a hand clamped over her mouth. Shh, lawyer girl, a cold voice whispered in her ear. You're coming with us. She struggled, kicking and clawing, but two men dragged her down the stairwell. Her heart pounded with terror. Damon woke to the sound of her muffled cries. He leapt to his feet, his senses exploding with panic. By the time he reached the street, a van was speeding away, Layla's scent strong in the air. "No!" Damon roared, his eyes flashing gold. His wolf surged inside him, demanding blood. He tore through the streets, tracking the van with supernatural speed. His enemies had her, and that meant war. The ropes around Layla's wrists cut deep, burning her skin as she twisted against them. Her heart hammered so hard it felt like it might burst. The warehouse stank of rust, oil, and cigarette smoke. The men around her weren't amateurs. Their eyes were cold, their movements were sharp, practiced. One of them crouched low, his knife glinting under the single dangling bulb. "You know why you're here, don't you?" he sneered. Layla glared at him, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Because you're cowards. You can't touch him, so you come after me." The leader chuckled, slow and mocking. He was tall, his jaw sharp like a blade, his eyes soulless. "You're smart. That's exactly it. The mighty Alpha King has a weakness. You." He leaned close, his breath sour. "He'll come running, and when he does, we'll bleed him dry." Layla's stomach clenched, but she didn't look away. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Then it came, a low growl, deep, earth-shaking. The men froze, the sound rolled through the warehouse like thunder before a storm. Heavy footsteps followed, slow but certain, echoing against the metal walls. The double doors at the far end creaked, then slammed open with a force that made the whole building tremble. Damon stood in the entrance. His chest was bare, muscles carved with power, his eyes glowing a savage gold. His face was carved with fury, every line of his body radiating lethal promise. Step away from her. His voice was low, guttural, more beast than man. The men shifted nervously, but the leader barked, "Shoot him!" Gunfire exploded, deafening in the confined space. Layla screamed as bullets ripped through the air, but Damon was faster. He moved in a blur, twisting, dodging. The first man went down with a broken arm, his scream cut short by Damon's fist smashing into his jaw. Another lunged with a knife, only to be lifted by the throat and thrown across the room like a rag doll, crashing into a stack of crates. The gunfire stopped. The air was thick with dust, groans, and the metallic tang of blood. "Kill him!" the leader roared. 3 men rushed at once, circling him. Damon's lips curled back in a snarl, his fangs flashing as his body trembled. Then, with a guttural roar, he shifted. Bones cracked, muscles stretched, clothes tore. In a heartbeat, the Alpha King stood before them in his true form. A massive black wolf, fur bristling, eyes blazing like molten fire. His presence was so powerful the men stumbled back in terror. Layla's breath caught. Even in her fear, she couldn't look away. He was terrifying and magnificent. The first man swung a steel pipe. Damon caught it in his jaws, crushing it like it was paper. He whipped his head, sending the man flying. The second tried to stab him, but Damon's massive paw slammed down, claws slicing across the floor. Blood sprayed as the man screamed, his weapon clattering uselessly away. The third turned to run, but Damon was on him in a blink, tackling him with bone-crunching force. The man's scream was cut short as Damon's growl shook the walls. The leader stood frozen, his gun shaking in his hand. "Monster," he spat. "You're a damn monster." Damon turned his head slowly, his glowing eyes locking on him. He stalked forward, each step radiating primal dominance. The leader fired, bullets tearing through the air. But Damon didn't stop. Bullets thudded into his shoulder, but he barely flinched, his fury too strong. With a feral snarl, he pounced, knocking the gun away. His massive jaws hovered at the man's throat. The leader trembled, choking on his own fear. "Damon!" Layla's voice rang out, sharp, desperate. The wolf froze. His ears flicked toward her, her scent wrapping around him like a chain pulling him back from the brink. Slowly, he turned his head, his golden eyes meeting hers. Her wrists were bleeding, her eyes wide but steady. She wasn't afraid of him, not even now. Please, she whispered, come back to me. Damon's chest heaved, his growls slowly quieting. With a shudder, his massive body shifted back, fur fading, claws retracting. Seconds later, he stood in human form again, sweat glistening on his skin, his chest heaving. He grabbed the leader by the collar, slamming him against the wall. His voice was ice, his eyes still glowing faintly. If you or anyone else touches her again, I will make sure you beg for death long before it comes. The leader whimpered. Damon tossed him aside like trash and rushed to Layla. He tore the ropes from her wrists, his hands shaking as he cupped her face. Did they hurt you? He demanded, his voice hoarse. Layla shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. No, but I thought I was going to lose you. You'll never lose me, he vowed, his forehead pressing to hers. You are mine. Always. Her hands slid up to his chest, feeling his heart pounding. Then stop hiding, she whispered. Stop pretending I'm not part of this. If I'm your mate, let me stand with you. His breath caught. His alpha instincts roared with pride, his heart swelling with something deeper than he had ever known. And in that moment, Damon realized she wasn't just his mate, she was his queen. The warehouse still smelled of blood and fear when Damon lifted Layla into his arms. She clung to him, her head against his chest, listening to the thunder of his heartbeat. He carried her outside, the night air cool against their skin. You're safe now, he murmured, his voice rough with emotion, but Layla shook her head. Safe for now. What about tomorrow? What about the next time they come? Damon paused. He could see it in her eyes. Fear? Yes, but also determination. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't asking to be protected forever. She was asking to fight beside him. You don't belong in this world of mine, he said softly. She touched his cheek, forcing him to meet her gaze. I belong with you. Wherever that is. His chest tightened. No one had ever looked at him like that, like he was more than just power, more than just a king. That night, he made a choice. She wouldn't just be hidden, shielded like a secret. She would be his, openly, boldly, his mate, his queen. 2 nights later, Damon brought Layla to a secluded estate just outside the city. Waiting there were men and women dressed in dark suits, their eyes sharp and strange, their movements too smooth to be human. Layla stiffened. Who are they? My pack, Damon said, his voice steady. Some followed me here when I left my kingdom. They're loyal. They need to see you. Her pulse quickened. See me? When they entered the great hall, all eyes turned. Layla felt the weight of their stares. Curiosity, suspicion, even resentment. She was human. Outsider. Damon's hand closed over hers, steady and firm. This is Layla, he said, his voice echoing. My mate. The room rippled with shock. Whispers broke out. Some frowned. Some bowed their heads. A tall man with gray hair stepped forward, his expression cold. With respect, my king, she is not of our kind. How can a human stand as queen among wolves? Damon's eyes flashed gold, his dominance filling the room. Because fate chose her. And fate does not make mistakes. His grip on Layla's hand tightened. Anyone who cannot accept her as my mate cannot accept me as their king. Silence fell. The tension was thick, but no one dared challenge him. Slowly, they lowered their heads in respect. Layla's throat tightened. She had never felt so out of place, and yet Damon's words wrapped around her like armor. She wasn't just surviving this world anymore, she was stepping into it. Later that night, when they were alone, the room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the night outside. The moonlight spilled across the wooden floor, turning everything silver. Layla sat near the window, her knees pulled up to her chest, staring out at the stars. Her heart was still racing from earlier. Damon had stood before his pack, declaring her as his mate. He hadn't flinched, hadn't hesitated, even when some looked at her with doubt and anger. He had chosen her, openly, proudly. She had never felt so claimed and yet so exposed. Behind her, Damon stood like a shadow against the wall, his tall frame restless, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. His wolf was near the surface. She could sense it in the way he moved, like a predator too big for the cage it lived in. "You didn't have to do that," Layla said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice was fragile, almost trembling. Damon's gaze locked on her, his golden eyes steady. "Yes, I did." He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, as if he was afraid to scare her. "They needed to know what you are to me, that you are mine, that no one, no enemy, no ally, no wolf will ever touch you without facing me first." Layla's chest tightened. His words should have frightened her, but instead they sent heat rushing through her veins. And what if they keep trying? What if this never stops? Damon's jaw clenched, his voice low and raw. "Then I'll fight. Every day. Until my last breath." The certainty in his tone stole her breath. He wasn't making a promise. He was speaking truth. Layla stood slowly, her bare feet silent on the floor. She moved toward him, her hand lifting almost on its own until her palm rested flat against his chest. His heart was pounding beneath her touch, strong, fast, alive. "Maybe I can't fight like you," she whispered, her eyes shining. "I don't have claws or fangs. But I'm not helpless, Damon. I'm a lawyer. I know how to think, how to win battles without strength. Don't shut me out. Don't treat me like I'm breakable. Let me be more than just the one you protect. Let me be part of you." For a long moment, he said nothing. His chest rose and fell beneath her hand, his eyes burning into hers. Then, with a sound that was half growl, half groan, he pulled her into his arms, crushing her against him. His mouth found hers in a kiss that was fire, rough at first, desperate, like he had been holding back for too long. She gasped against him, her fingers tangling in his hair as she melted into the heat of him. The kiss deepened, slowing, becoming something more tender, more reverent. His hands framed her face, then slid down to her waist, holding her as if she was the most precious thing in the world. "You are not my weakness," he whispered against her lips, his breath hot, his voice breaking. "You are my strength." Tears stung her eyes as she kissed him back, softer now, her lips lingering on his. She felt his trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything he carried, his kingdom, his pack, his enemies, and now her. And yet, in that moment, it was just them. His forehead pressed to hers, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Layla," he said her name like a vow, like a prayer. "From the moment I saw you, I knew. You were written into me long before I was born." Her chest swelled, her voice a whisper. "Then don't ever let me go." "I never will," he vowed. When he kissed her again, it wasn't rushed. It was slow, lingering, full of promise. Their breaths mingled, their hearts pounded in rhythm, and the space between them vanished until there was nothing left but the bond pulling them together. That night, in the quiet silver of the moon, they gave in completely, not just to passion, but to trust. Not just to desire, but to fate. And when dawn came, they were no longer just Damon and Layla. They were king and queen. They were mates. They were forever. Dawn broke over the estate, soft light spilling across the city skyline in the distance. Layla stirred awake, her body warm against Damon's, his arm draped protectively over her. For a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect, safe, but Damon's wolf never rested. Even in his sleep, he twitched, growled softly under his breath. When he finally opened his eyes, they glowed faintly gold. He sat up quickly, scanning the window as if danger lurked beyond the glass. Layla touched his hand. "You're tense again." "I can feel it," Damon said. His voice was low, heavy. "They're not finished. Last night wasn't the end. They'll come harder, smarter, and they'll use anyone they can." Her stomach tightened, but she didn't look away. Then we fight harder, too. Damon turned to her, his gaze softening for only a moment before hardening again. He pulled her close, pressing his lips to her temple. I'll die before I let them touch you. But outside those walls, his enemies were already moving. Next is part 2. Subscribe and like for more stories.